So what would you like to explore? It can be a personal question or something more general.
I guess I'll start. Um, a kind of a personal and general question. It definitely seems like the energy is getting stronger and more intense, and we're in a retrograde right now, and definitely feeling um, that kind of opportunity to be reborn, I guess, in that general sense. Or the tests and trials are coming, and it feels like we're moving through them during this retrograde time. Personally, I've been challenged by meeting kind of a disparity between outside world and my home life. My home life seems to be very peaceful, loving, supportive kind of area. And then when we go out into the outside and to the public, it really feels like you're in a hornet's nest. And I found that in my work life, so much so that I ended up having to quit my last job, which is kind of a first for me. I've never really had to step away from what I would consider a duty. And so waiting for the new opportunities to arise and just listening, I feel like it's an opportunity really to find a place that we don't have to continue in fear, or find a place where we can, hopefully our presence can radiate without that kind of a fear, and we can start a new job. And maybe my question would be, is the next step, or can we find a space or a job or a situation outside that can be either a source for energy for other people to benefit from, and or are we wading out into this venture and we're just going to have to be like a sea, like a ship on a rocky sea kind of area. Especially as I try and pick a new career, I'm really kind of focusing in on whether I should continue in my chosen line of field or just start afresh. Yeah.
So much is being rethought right now. And something that is being released is the idea of obligation. Humanity has been conditioned, infiltrated with this idea that we have obligations to certain things that we just have to do, even if we don't want to, even if they drain our energy. We've been conditioned with ideas around there being a savior. So when we look at the world around us, sometimes we believe that it's up to us, that we need to help, that we need to care, that we need to save. And all of that is being released. And this eclipse time is a really powerful time for many of us to reorient ourselves to the ways in which we have been limiting the natural, most high frequency expression of our sacred life force energy in order to maintain this sense of obligation, or I need to help people, I need to save people. When we are in that state of believing that the state of the world is a problem, that it's something that needs to be healed, then we may inevitably unconsciously drop our frequency to meet the world around us. Because what's happening is a lot of people in the world believe that there's a problem, believe that there's something that needs healing, that needs to change. And yet true healing occurs when we can see and embody the divine perfection inherent within what is, so that we can accept and embrace what is, and then actually co-create with it in an empowered way. In a way where we get to offer our greatest service, but not our help. not our saving, our service. And our service is exciting to share. Our service is actually very high frequency. It expands us, it opens our hearts, and it brings forth a sense of optimism. So then we're not so focused on the state of the world around us. We are energized by the way in which we get to co-create the world to be. And when we are showing up in this way, like really claiming what energy we want to bring forth, what it is that we want to experience, embracing our sovereignty, contributing to the creation of a new world, we'll find that it's a lot easier to maintain a high frequency amidst whatever it is that is around us. In order to do so, we have to release our judgments of it, release ideas that it needs to be different, that it needs to change, that there's something inherently wrong with it. And it can help in these moments to surrender the mind. The mind has so many ideas of what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. Yet the soul exists beyond all of that. And that doesn't mean we can't be discerning and that we can't have preferences. It just means that we're not going to get caught up in wars that drain our energy when we see something that we don't prefer, by judging it and by thinking that it needs to change. This experience of life is a co-creation, and everybody is contributing their part. Everybody has free will, and we all have access to the light and dark, and we play within the realms of light and dark in the ways that we choose. And there are many light workers at this time that are imposing their beliefs that we should be playing in consciousness, that we should be playing in love and light onto all other beings. But what we don't recognize is this is a form of darkness within itself. It's a form of coercion of you should be like this, I want you to be like this. If you're not like this, then there's something wrong. The true light is acceptance of this divine play. And it's acceptance of the divine play, but I'm feeling into how that may be received. It's not like, oh, this is how it is, there's nothing I can do about it. It's more of acceptance of the divine play and the choices that other people make. Acceptance of the world that is, while knowing that we have the sovereignty, the personal power to create an experience for ourselves. We are each a universe unto ourselves. Within this world right here, there are infinite number of worlds, and no world is the same. Every perspective is radically different. So you don't have to adopt the perspectives of the people around you, adopt the moods of the people around you. You get to create your perspective. You are a creator. Feel into what is resonant for you, what inspires you, what delights you. There's nothing that we need to do here. Understand that this is a divine play. We are all God in drag. We are infinite possibility, and we get to come here and create. We don't have an obligation to save. We don't have an obligation to help. We don't need to sacrifice ourselves for the people around us. The greatest act of love comes from, I want to be mindful of these words. It's like the greatest sharing of love is not from sacrificing ourselves or compromising ourselves or merging with the energy around us if it's not what we prefer. It's actually creating the life of our dreams, because that's what allows for the highest frequencies to flow through us, and that is what actually has the greatest impact. Humanity has been deeply embedded with all sorts of limiting beliefs. We've been indoctrinated by all of these religious ideals that in their purest sense are so beautiful and so aligned. Like the idea of giving of ourselves to others is beautiful, but it's been distorted into sacrificing ourselves, into compromising ourselves, into people pleasing, into showing up inauthentically, into forgetting about our highest excitement so that we can just dive into the misery, the suffering of others, which actually feeds that misery and suffering and can turn into enabling. So it's really time that we let go of who we have been, how we have been taught to relate, what the minds may believe is the appropriate way to show up for a world that may appear to be suffering, and instead tune so deep within you so that you may follow your highest excitement. This is the pathway, and the only pathway, to cultivating your highest frequency. And you cultivating your highest frequency is what liberates humanity. Because every being on this planet and beyond is connected. There's like a web of consciousness. We are also interconnected and intermingled. So anything that we break through within our own minds, any limiting belief that we expand beyond, we communicate that telepathically to every single being on the planet and beyond. You being the example is the greatest service. And you'll find that when you're operating at a high frequency, you have boundless energy. Your intuition is spot on. It is crystal clear. And you will be able to offer the transmissions, show up in ways that truly support people instead of continuing to engage in their cycles of drama and of trauma. A lot of what we think of helping people is actually, in a sense, engaging in what some people have referred to as the drama triangle. And the drama triangle has a victim, a villain, and a savior. Know that any time that you are trying to help someone, that you are trying to save them in some way, you are buying into the idea of there being a victim. And this is inherently disempowering to hold someone in the vision of you are a victim. And this idea of victimhood is rampant all over the planet. And it is creating so much sickness, so much disease, so much violence, divisiveness, insanity. If there's a victim, that means there also must be a villain. So you see that all this divisiveness arises from that idea. The way that we hold people in our consciousness, how we treat them, has an impact on them because we are so interconnected and interdependent. So be mindful of the ways in which you may be perceiving people as victims and having like pity on them and thinking that they need their help because they are not able to provide for themselves or do for themselves. In those moments, allow yourself to step back and see them for who and what they are, these divine creators. And it doesn't matter how far they have strayed from that remembering, from that awareness, from that embodiment of them as divine creators, that is still within them. That's an aspect of us that is never lost. And it is present no matter what we are creating, whether we're conscious of it or not. When we hold people in this image, we empower them. We actually hold a space that encourages them to connect to their divine power and rise up out of victimhood. A lot of the problems that we're seeing on the planet at this time require us to rise up out of victimhood. And once we rise up out of victimhood, there's no enemy. There's nothing out there that is the cause of our problem. We are then able to look at the true place where we have power, at the true place where we can change things, which is within us. So that automatically eradicates shame. Not shame, I meant to say blame. It eradicates blame. And it does eradicate shame in some ways. It eradicates blame and it allows us to actually be the change. Because in blame, and this is someone else's fault and pointing the finger out there, nothing changes. We just create more of the same. And in many ways, that's what we've been seeing. It's like this cycling of drama. Meanwhile, the reality is we can create anything here. We can create anything. We can create the most extraordinary stories of love, of joy, of health and vitality, of success. The sky is not even the limit. That is the reality. And if you have lived otherwise, which all of us have to some degree, it's because of our belief systems. It's because of what we've been indoctrinated with. And while it may not be our fault, it's our responsibility to change it. And to take this time of this eclipse, like this eclipse season, to just put down what isn't serving you, what isn't exciting you, what isn't delighting you. Beginning to move in the direction of self-love, of self-honoring. The soul knows that self, spirit, and every being are all one. So the more that you honor yourself and love yourself, the more that you will honor and love others. And there is no act of self-love that could not be loving to another. This is a misnomer that if we take care of ourselves, we're somehow taking our energy away from someone else, or if we have to focus on loving others and not loving ourselves. It's always one and the same, because at the level of soul, it's all one. So what is in alignment for us, what is loving towards us, what is honoring of us, is in alignment and loving and honoring of all. And it may not look that way. We may not believe that when, for example, it's self-honoring and self-loving to set a boundary in a relationship, which brings up pain for another human being, which brings up hurt. But know that in that moment, it's not that, it may not be, if it's truly coming from self-honor and self-love, then you haven't caused that pain in that relationship. Light is being shown on the pain that is already there. What was your question, Matt? It was about your next steps.
First of all, thank you. That's incredible. Yeah, just I think you addressed it quite nicely in the fact that it feels like there's a transition between an old way of thinking, which is obligation, duty, and switching to a new way of thinking, which is honoring self, self-love, and then finding a career that really celebrates my highest joy and excitement. So
Yes.
I think you touched upon it beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, it's something that's so prevalent within the collective human psyche is this slavery mentality. And the more that we become conscious of that, the more we start to see the way in which we hold ourselves as slaves. Like, I need to do this thing that I hate doing for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, in order to provide for myself, in order to be worthy of food and a home and all of these material things. It's simply not true. It's coming from a very limited perspective that is like rooted in this belief in slavery. But we are never slaves. Not truly. We are so free. So free. And the truth is, the frequency on the planet is rising every day. Years ago, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, even a decade ago, even 1 year ago, we were far more limited than we are now. As the frequency rises, it becomes so much easier to shift our direction, to embody new ways of being, to like receive the reflection of our beliefs almost instantly. So we have the opportunity to break free from this idea of slavery, of obligation, of duty. Yes, we do have duty. It's a divine duty. It's our service. Like, our duty is to the divine. It's not to a job. It's not to a relationship. It's to highest alignment. It is to love. It's to listening to our intuition and honoring that. That is our duty. Nothing in the form is our long-term duty inherently. It only becomes that through us honoring our alignment in all moments. This is the pathway to creating the magical, miraculous life that is possible for us all here. And that is our route to being of greatest service to everybody around us, by embodying, by receiving, by living our magic and our divinity. Thank you, Matt, for that question. So here's a question in the chat box. Can Akashic help us deal or point out issues from the past or behavior patterns? I want to do past life regression therapy to connect with my past in order to discover my soul purpose, but I feel that I'm still at war with myself, reacting to old programs, old belief systems, and old coping structures. So I'm going to offer my personal perspective, my personal opinion on this question. And just know that you are invited to receive whatever resonates with you, and this is simply my perspective. When I am working in the realm of healing, of transformation, of Akashic readings, I like to release the idea of the past. Because from the perspective of the Akashic Records, there is no real past the way that the mind believes and thinks that there is. The past is actually, and the future is emanating from this now moment. And our past is constantly shape-shifting according to who it is that we are becoming. Anytime we change in the present moment, our past changes to reflect that change. If you come into Akashic perspective and explore the past, you see it as, or well, I see it as, when I go into Akashic perspective and explore the past, I see it as infinite possibility, just like I see the future. So when it comes to navigating like behavioral issues, let me see, being at war with ourselves, reacting to old programs, it's really about exploring that in the present and illuminating the infinite possibility that is available to us in each moment to choose anew. This requires us to raise our frequency. And one of the easiest ways to do this is to choose our highest excitement in every moment, to really get clear on what is the most aligned thing for me to do right now, and then to do that. And as you do that, you start to gain momentum in a new direction. You actually raise your frequency. And when your frequency is raised, you have a new perspective. And it becomes a lot easier to see your so-called problem behaviors in a new light and to choose a new way. And as you choose a new way, it's like you open a new possibility, a new pathway, a new doorway. And you begin to rewire your brain. You know, they say that neurons that fire together, wire together. So it's like you make that new choice once and it's like, whoa, it's maybe challenging, but it's a huge breakthrough. And then it's a little easier the next time. And it's a little easier the next time. And then even easier the next time. So I find more empowering than really exploring and diving deep into the problems of the past is actually anchoring into this now moment, raising our frequency to the best of our ability now, so that we can see with greater clarity the opportunities that are actually available to us. Because to believe that we are stuck in any one pattern, we are stuck in any one behavior, is not inherently true. It is simply a belief. And when we believe it, we start to behave as if it were true, thereby confirming that belief and anchoring it into what we perceive as truth. Like we start to believe, okay, this is how it is. And then it becomes a problem. And then we believe that we are not equipped to change it, to grow beyond it, to heal it. But it's merely a belief. We are divinely designed to be capable of anything and everything. And the more that we raise our frequency, the easier it is to choose anew. See if there's more of this question. In terms of discovering our soul's purpose, that's such a big one. So many people want to know, like, what is my purpose? And sometimes that question is rooted in a lack of self-love and recognizing the inherent beauty and perfection and miraculousness in all that you are as you are. Our soul purpose is not in one project, one job, one endeavor, one relationship. It's not in one thing. It is inherent in every breath that we think, and every emotion that we feel, and every thought, and every breath that we take, every emotion that we feel, and every thought that we think. It's all that we are. That is our soul's purpose. And when we feel like we're not enough, when we have that prevalent belief about ourselves, then we may think we need to discover our soul's purpose, something that is more than what we've already been and already are. Yet this is so far from the truth. Our soul's purpose is to be, and it's to create, and it's to discover who we are by becoming who we are, by exploring, by getting curious, by playing, by dreaming and following our dreams. It expresses itself in an infinite number of ways, and there's no way that we could ever actually stray from our soul's purpose. However, there are ways of living where we are more embodying that purpose stream. And we know we're embodying the purpose stream when we feel like we're showing up as our highest selves, when we feel like we're excited and energized by what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're sharing with the world. That's how you know that you are living, following your soul's purpose stream. And that can be anything, and that is constantly changing. So for me right now, it's offering this transmission. At another date or another time, it's taking a nap. At another time, it's taking a hot yoga class. It's always different. At another time, it's calling someone and reconciling. Like, that's your soul's purpose. It's truly inherent within everything. And the more that we can let go of this idea of like needing to discover our soul's purpose, the more we can just relax into who and how we are and feel like that is enough. And that is the ultimate foundation for us becoming all that it is that we can become. We won't realize our potential if we constantly think like, I'm not enough, I need to discover the one thing that I should be or the more that I'm meant to be. That's only going to perpetuate more of the same. Know that a lot of whatever action we take is going to perpetuate more of the belief that inspired it. So if we're seeking a soul purpose, if we're seeking success in a career because we feel like we're not enough, then the more that we seek and chase that, the more that we're going to feel like we're just not enough. As soon as we relax into just our inherent worthiness, our inherent enoughness as we are, then any action we take from that space is going to grow that. and feeling like we need to discover a soul's purpose that is somehow beyond what we've been or who we've been, tends to come from the space of not enoughness, as I am. So instead of seeking that one purpose, I would recommend listening to what is your alignment from moment to moment to moment, and truly honoring that. What is your highest excitement? What is your intuition calling you to do, to say, to be right now? Also, when it comes to changing old programs, old belief systems, old coping structures, it's really helpful when we accept them fully and completely, when we just embrace them wholeheartedly, so that we may relinquish any judgment of them or resistance to them, because whatever we resist, we are inadvertently feeding energy to. And we really want to take a step back and, in a sense, separate ourselves through observing those behaviors and beliefs with the energy of non-judgment, with the energy of compassion, with the energy of this is okay, and this is not what I'm choosing moving forward. This is not my preferred experience. But as soon as we judge it, we get into a fight with it. We fight it, we resist it. We're like, no, I don't like this. I don't want this. This is bad. This is ugly. And that just gives it more and more energy. We get caught up in a battle. And that's where we may find ourselves at war with ourselves. So the first step is always acceptance of what is. Whatever this is okay. And I'm willing to love myself here, and I'm willing to love myself there. And I just willing to love myself everywhere. All parts of me are lovable and acceptable simply because they are who I am. And I love myself. And that foundation makes change so much easier, because we're not fighting the old, we're actually embracing our love for ourselves. And then we choose new ways of being because we love ourselves. We can't choose a new way of being because we hate ourselves at the way we are. We're going to be in a place of self-hate. And why would someone in a place of self-hate choose a new way of being? It all comes from self-love. Thank you for that question. What else would you like to explore?
Hi, Daniela.
Hey, Sophie.
I feel like everything that you've already said really touched on this. But I was going to ask, and I'm curious if there's just anything else that would come through about integrating big inner transformations. I feel like that's probably happening for most people right now. And yeah, I've just noticed this occurring, these big energetic shifts within, and then feeling a slight disconnect and being able to live them. For example, going and interacting with someone, it just feels like, oh, I go back, if that makes sense. But yeah, just mostly integrating and fully being in these during these transformational times, how to ground and let everything land, and instead of feeling like you're just making shifts and then they're floating away. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And something that I was saying for you was actually grounding it into the nervous system, meaning, okay, so there's something around grounding, rooting, integrating these shifts that happens most gracefully and most efficiently when our nervous system is completely relaxed and at ease. So allowing that to become the priority, noticing when you're feeling a little bit activated, when you may be feeling triggered or reactive, or any sort of like nervous system activation, coming home to peace, to relaxation, making that really important. Sometimes people in those moments will go towards like trying to figure it out, or if it's like a fight or flight reaction, they might go into the fight or into the flight or into the fawning. It's like in those moments, just bringing it back in, allowing ourselves to release whatever may be coming up for us, like just momentarily letting it go so that we can pick it back up from a regulated nervous system. Because if our nervous system is activated, we often will perceive things as something to be afraid of or something to fight. But a really relaxed nervous system is going to have a very different experience of that same thing. And it is from this place of peace, of presence within our physical bodies that allows for what is required in order to choose a new way. We need to have all of our energy present with us to choose a new way, because it takes energy to choose a new way. When we're acting out of habit, it's like, this is the way my brain has always behaved. This is the way I've always behaved. And our brain is kind of, those circuits are deep and they're well paved. So it just becomes easy. It doesn't require a lot of energy, but suddenly it's like, I've always gone this way. Now I want to go this way. That requires energy. And if the nervous system, if we're like in fight or flight, then we don't have that energy available to us. If we're thinking too much, if we're judging, if we're watch where your energy is being drained. Bring it back into this moment, into presence, really grounding and rooting it into the here and now so that it is fully available for the next thing you're going to say, for the next choice you're going to make, for the next way that you're going to behave, so that you can show up in these new ways. Does that answer your question, Sophie, or do you have more?
No, that was perfect. That was beautiful. I've been experiencing that a lot. I can tell that it flows beautifully when I am grounded. So that was just really reaffirming. Thanks, Daniela.
Yeah, thank you. Are there more questions that you would like to explore?
We've talked a lot about frequency shifts. And if no one else has any more questions, I'd love to ask. Diet, exercise, of course, are nice ways to stay in a high frequency vibration during this time. Do you have any other tips that could help us kind of maintain?
I would say my biggest tip is in continuously following your highest alignment. And that requires a deep presence. That requires really deep listening and a letting go of shoulds, even around, or like things that we think we know, even around something like diet or something like exercise. So while it can be incredibly supportive to move the body, to move energy, to be breathing deeply, to getting out in nature, there may be times where it may be most supportive to our frequency to do like a really intense workout, or other times where it's most supportive to rest, maybe to lay in bed all day. And there may be times where we want to fast, and there may be times where we actually want to feast. So to have any sort of pre-plan or preconceived ideas of what I should be doing or what I will be doing may not always be supportive when it's like something more structured. What could be more structured is just knowing that we are moving into deeper and deeper self-love, self-care, and self-honor so that we can prioritize dropping into the presence required to really feel our intuitive pulls, in what direction they're guiding us into. Like before we go to even a yoga class or something, like listening, is this really what I want to do? Is this really what I want to do? Because things like when we should ourselves, I should do this, our frequency lowers. If we want to eat cookies, like if our body is like asking for cookies and we're like, no, I shouldn't eat that, then you might create an inner battle. And that can take you away from your high frequency. Or even worse, we eat the cookies because our body wanted it, but then we tell ourselves, I shouldn't have done that. That creates a whole mess in our bodies. Our body isn't able to receive the gift, the blessing that is everything that we eat. So it's truly just about listening and knowing that there are many forces at play here. And while we are impacted by everything, by everyone, we are paradoxically, simultaneously sovereign, autonomous beings. And you get to choose how you relate to the impact, the influence that something else is having on you. And there are influences that will guide you towards your soul's purpose stream, towards you embodying all that you know that you are. You like know when you're yourself, when you're like in your power, when you're in alignment. And there are also forces, including your own thoughts, including your own emotions, that may guide you elsewhere. And the more that we begin to recognize that there are these various different forces, the better we become at discerning between what forces we want to feed. We have no choice but to honor, to accept and embrace all of them, because the more that we fight our own resistance or fight our own darkness, the more of it we create. We don't want to fight our sadness or like fight the voice in our head that's like, I'm not good enough, I can't do it. We want to love it all, embrace it all, accept it all. But that doesn't mean we live as if that were true. We act as if that were true. We move forward as if that were true. We don't make that thing our leader. We simply love it, accept it, embrace it, and then return home to our hearts. We get to choose what emotions we feed, what thoughts we give energy to. Sometimes restructuring our belief systems it requires like a very conscious, deliberate intention at time. We have to know that we are not our beliefs, and our beliefs are so convincing. We may think that we can't do something, like we may have this dream, right? Like I have this dream, I want to do this thing, I want to create this, that would be so exciting. That would be like such a beautiful expression of my divine creative nature. But then we have a belief that we can't. And it's interesting what that belief will do. It can actually inspire certain emotional states within us, where then continuously we are experiencing this emotion where we're like, well, now's not the time because like I'm in this state. And it all becomes very convincing. And we start to believe that the belief is true. Like we perpetuate the belief. Everything that exists, nearly everything that exists, seeks to survive. It wants to live on, including our beliefs, including our emotions. So as you tap into this and realize this, then you can start to realize that your beliefs are actually running this show, but they're not inherently true. And that's what helps you begin to relate to your entire inner world in a way where you're actually guiding yourself according to possibility and potential versus according to your beliefs, which are all rooted in your past experiences. Your beliefs are formulated often, many of them, when you're like an infant, when you're a child, according to how you were treated, according to the beliefs that the people around you had. We received all these imprints. The majority of it was completely unconscious. Now all of that is lingering in our unconscious, and it's driving the show, and it's not the inherent truth here. So exploring that as well. And there's a difference between like acceptance and surrender to what is. I love the idea of accepting and surrendering to everything, because when we accept and surrender, we don't fight. When we embrace, we don't fight. When we love, we don't fight. But let's say you're walking down the street and then suddenly you start having all these super dark, like negative thoughts. There's a difference between accepting, surrendering, and loving, which is like, this is okay, I'm not gonna resist this, I'm not gonna fight this. And then like becoming the thoughts and growing the thoughts and being like, wow, like my whole day is this, and now I'm gonna mistreat myself. And we still, it's like, there's this spiritual warrior within us that accepts, loves, and embraces all, and doesn't let any of it take over. Because we're living an experience of light and dark, and we need to use our discernment. And more and more and more, as we are shining our light on more, becoming more conscious and aware of all the darkness, is like, it almost feels like amplified. And it can get really intense, and it can infiltrate our minds and infiltrate our bodies and infiltrate our relationships. And it is up to us to see it for what it is, not to fight it, not to demonize it, but to see it for what it is, so that we are not consumed by it, so that we do not become it and then perpetuate more of it. Thank you for that question, Matt. So here's one more question in the chat box. I feel tension between traveling home for some family friend events this summer and not going at all. Having a hard time deciphering between shutting and true desire in this situation. Any insight? Well, in the spirit of releasing all obligation, all people pleasing, it can be helpful to create a space where it's like, all right, taking all this off, like all of the shoulds that I impose on myself, all of the ideas of I need to please other people, I need to do things for other people, and really tune into your being. What do I want to do? What excites me to do? Feel like we all have this intuitive nature deep within, like, what would it feel like to do this thing? And receive that intuitive guidance, and then make that choice accordingly. And if guilt arises, know that it's not necessarily because you're making, a wrong or a bad decision. It may be because it's triggering some of your programs. And some of the programs may be like, I need to spend time with my family, or I need to go to this thing. Or it's selfish if I don't. Or, fear of missing out. All these things could come up. So it's like an opportunity to dive deeper and deeper into our consciousness, to see and to feel what is actually there. And also knowing that you can't make a right or wrong decision. No matter what you choose, you can make the best of it. So sometimes I feel like we have this idea of like, I need to make the right decision. Like, what is the right decision? And it's like, well, either. Like in the eyes of the Akashic Records, either. You could benefit and will benefit from both. And when you approach it from that perspective, there's a lot less pressure on the decision that you have to make. And when there's less pressure, it's like it alleviates it liberates your energy to navigate whatever it is that comes up as a result of the decision that you make in a way that is empowering, in a way that is supportive, in a way that perhaps is fun. So you want to like align with whatever choice you make, knowing that there really was no right choice or wrong choice. And if you make a choice and it leads to a challenge, great. There's an opportunity for growth. Letting go of ideas of I made the wrong choice. Life doesn't work that way, and everything that could ever be is being lived anyway. So that other timeline of that other choice, if that is a possibility within existence, that also exists. Sometimes when I perceive life through that lens, it helps me alleviate any pressure that I have on choices. And if there's no pressure, it's like, I'm free to like really drop in. It's interesting, put the pressure on ourselves so that we choose the right thing, but releasing the pressure is what actually allows us to listen more carefully to the insight of our intuition and then align with whatever decision we make. Because it's interesting how if we make a decision with doubt, say we doubt both decisions, but we have to choose one, so we choose one. If we move forward with doubt, that can create these sort of holes or openings for all sorts of other experiences to arise as a result. And we may think that it was the choice, but really it was the doubt that we brought with us moving forward with that choice. I love you guys lots, and I love sharing with you. I'm gonna close the Akasha container here. And I would love to share with all of you that I have a training coming up. It's starting in July. And if you would like to learn how to access Akashic perspective, I would love to share with you. It, for me, has been a life-changing practice. I love that I can just come into this state at any moment, explore any of my life's challenges, explore what's going on in the world, and receive insight that is so liberating, that anchors in peace, that helps me to open my heart, that helps me really play with all of the paradoxes that are here. It's like we're all one and we're all these like autonomous sovereign beings, and everything is so perfect, divinely perfect, and I also want to create the life experience of my preference. So it's like just seeing all of that and understanding it has been so empowering for me to love myself, to love others, to love life, to appreciate my life, to be dropped into a place of peace and a place of presence, and also to create a life that reflects my love versus the one that I had before I discovered the Akashic Records, which was just super chaotic. I just had all these intentions for myself and for my life, but I didn't know how to realize them. And I had massive health challenges and financial challenges and all sorts of drama. And the Akashic Records has really helped me anchor into more of myself. And it's also been an incredible tool in sharing with others. It's highly impactful to the point of one reading truly being life-changing and guiding people in a whole new direction in their lives. I mean, there are people that I can see years later that are like, oh my God, that reading you gave me like changed my life forever. Like this changed, that changed, that changed. It's so transformational. Also know that the one-on-one readings are radically different from the group readings. They can be very psychically precise in a way, very specific to one person. In these group readings, I'm speaking to a group field, so it's a very different experience. So if you feel excited about the prospect of learning how to channel, connect more with your intuition, access the Akashic Records, and I would love to share with you, please reach out. The training is on my website, and I really appreciate you guys being here and contributing all of your questions. So thank you. I'm sending you guys lots of love. Thank you. Happy Sunday.